The views expressed and the opinions given by their guests do not necessarily reflect those of the Odyssey Files hosts, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
This is Susan Slaughter from Paranormal Caught on Camera, introducing you to the most epic show ever, The Odyssey Files with David Soyering and Michael O'Neill. You're welcome. Pew, 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 pew.
Oh!
Kim, what are you doing?
Well, I'm telling Mike and Dave, it's time to get on the show.
Oh, well, the Odyssey Files starts now.
Good evening, paranormal community. It is 7 o'clock where we are right now, which means you are listening or watching the Odyssey Files here on the web network. I am your host, Michael O'Neill. With me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. David Soyering. Good evening, Dave.
Good evening, Mike. How are you on this blistering hot Monday?
Hot.
Hot. It was hot today.
Yes, it was.
97 degrees and humid, and the state of Minnesota should be absolutely 100% illegal.
Even though I don't have any personal experience with this, it is hotter than a horse's anus outside.
No, that's pretty hot. I don't have any experience with that either, but that sounds hot.
It sounds hot. I'm going to assume that it's hot. Very
bad
hot.
allergy day, too. Like, I click my thing and it says, allergy sufferers, da-da-da-da-da, and it's in the red today. So not only is it blistering hot, not only are the allergies, like, incredibly high. That's why my eyes look like I probably, like, should bleach them.
Don't they always look like that?
I don't know. Maybe.
I think they do.
Looks like I'm high all the time. Regretfully, I'm not. So that's all I got to say on that subject matter.
Right. So I'm sure that there are a lot of listeners who agree with that sentiment.
Yeah.
I am not one of them, though.
No, you're not, but that's okay. Not everybody has.
Yes, it is. That's right. This is Open Mind Hour. So, or 2 hours, whatever. Open Mind Show that just didn't have that good ring to it. So skip that.
Right.
So, right. Everybody is welcome unless you're a douchebag.
Even then, you're welcome to, but,
Depending on how big of a douchebag.
Okay.
And what you're a douchebag about.
Right.
There we go. Okay. Now we have that settled. So, we have a great show for you guys again this week. Since we had a whole lot of different topics that we wanted to talk about last week for Paranormal Randomness, and all we got to was Skinwalker Ranch, which the season finale was last Tuesday, which I watched, but Dave is not. So we'll save that for another time. But we had some things we really wanted to discuss. So even though this wasn't planned, it is now Paranormal Randomness Second Edition Part 2.
there you go.
So, but first, we have a bunch more listener stories for everybody. And I've been able to briefly go over some of them.
Did you see the last one I put in there?
I didn't actually. I'll do that right now.
I was going to say, I put one in there at the end that I tagged. It's just for us because you just have to read it. It's just too beautiful not to read. And then I put in the best response that I saw from a listener.
10-year-old nephew claims he
No, the last one, number 8. It would be number 8, not number 7. There's one below it.
Oh, you never put number 8.
Yeah, I didn't put a number on it because we're not going to read it. It was just for us.
Well, then why even bring it up?
because it's funny as hell. We can read it, I guess. Look at the response, though, the answer that I put in there at the very bottom. I knew you'd like that. We certainly, if we have time, we certainly could read it because it is funny. But you got to read it verbatim. You know, it'll actually be my story, so I'll read it verbatim, just exactly the way it's written.
All right, sounds good.
Because that's the funniest part about it is how it's written.
I haven't read it, but I did read the answer, and the
answer's hilarious.
The answer shows me all I really need to know.
Yeah.
About it. So, otherwise, anything exciting going on in?
Nope.
Okay.
Same old. Can't believe we're already halfway through the month.
Yeah, we're like over halfway through the year now, too.
Yeah. That kind of seems about right to me. It seems like it should be about halfway through the year. It just seems like we're really flying. Like June and July are like we're really cranking, and that really sucks because like we get such a small window of summertime, like basically 3 months out of 12. That we deal with 5 to 6 months of winter depending on the year, and then we get 3 months of summer, and we get 2 weeks of spring, and we get we usually get a nice fall. Usually our falls are pretty good. Our springs last about 2 weeks, though. It goes from 50 to 90. It has every year for the past few years, past 3 or 4 years. It's gone like 50, 60 degrees, going to be a beautiful spring. And then next thing you know, it's 90. And then forget about it after that because then we're just off to the races with summer.
Yeah. And that's pretty much what has happened. I don't think it hasn't been hot in like a month and a half.
No, it's been, I agree with you. It's been a hot summer. I was just talking to my mom today and I was talking about that same thing. She lives up in Michigan and she's like, no, it's not bad here. And I'm like, yeah, well, it's pretty smoking hot here in Minnesota, considering we're only a couple hours north of Canada or south of Canada.
Horse's anus, Dave. Horse's anus.
It sounds like it, man.
Oh my Lord. And I get to spend 8 to 10 hours out in it every day.
Oh, absolutely. Lucky you.
Lord. Yeah, it's like showering in my clothes but never getting clean.
Yeah, or dry.
Or dry, for that matter. Yeah. I've walked into a few customers and I'm just like, thank you for having your AC set on Alaska. Because it's cold in here and that's what I like to feel right now.
There you go. Like, thermal winter. I'm just going to stand here for an extra minute and check my email and before I get back on the road.
Pretty much. So so here we go. I didn't have them up. There we go. Story number 1. Am I going crazy or is it paranormal? I'm leaning towards crazy, but we'll see what we get after we read this. So I'm very used to paranormal happenings going on around me. I'm fully convinced my house is haunted. Recently, however, I've been seeing fast-moving, inky figures out of the corners of my eye. It first started at a camp about a week ago. I was sitting in a room with my friends when a girl opened the door and she entered the room. Just outside the door, I could have sworn I saw a lady walk past. However, when I tried to get a look at her, no one was there. I even stood up and looked out the door. Still no one. The entire room was empty of people. The only thing in the room was sleeping mats and sleeping bags. I've seen things like this 10 to 15 more times since. So, am I going crazy or is this paranormal? I definitely think it's paranormal because, I don't know how old you are. And I think that's going to be the main kicker here. You're at camp, but were you a camp counselor? Are you 15 years old?
I'm going to say, I don't know. I was going to say, I think it's like old enough to be a camp counselor.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I could go either way on that one, I guess.
And the reason that I bring that up is because it seems to me that, especially since this is going on around you all the time, that you probably have some sort of abilities. And the ability is, you have that ability to see. So I think that it is paranormal, but I don't think that it's anything you need to be worried about, because it seems to me like these spirits that you are seeing are just going about whatever it is they're going to do. Whether they're walking past, whether they're walking into your home, whether they're walking down the street, whatever. I think you have at least the beginnings of the ability to see them, which is probably why they're not like fully manifested in your eyes. They're the inky, the inky black figures, which is just an unmanifested, fully manifested, apparition of a person. So, I mean, it doesn't seem, even from your story, that you're at all scared. You're more confused than anything. So I honestly would seek out like a reputable medium, somebody that would be able to look to you and tell you whether you have abilities or not, or maybe even be able to see and tell you exactly what you are seeing and why. That's it. That's all I got.
I the first thing I would recommend, because it seems like it first started at camp about a week ago, right, is what it says. And then it says, I've seen things like this 10 to 15 more times since. So in the last week, this lady or this girl, whatever, has had 10 to 15 experiences of seeing something, which sounds like it's a very large number. And I'm going to say it's an older woman because she said, I'm fully convinced my house is haunted. So I'm assuming it's like you got to be old enough to own the house is kind of what I'm going to guess. But so the first thing that I would do is I would go get my eyes checked, because floaters, like people who have floaters, if there's like it's starting macular degeneration, glaucoma, there are things that can happen to your eyes that cause you to see things out of the corner of your eyes. It's when your eyes start getting tired and old that can happen. And there's other issues for it. There's medical reasons why you can start seeing things out of the corner of your eyes. So I would go in next physical, whatever, or if I were getting bombarded and I saw 15 things out of the corner of my eye in the last week, I would go see my eye doctor sooner than later, just to rule out that it's not something going wrong with my eyes. It probably is paranormal. They certainly aren't going crazy. I don't think you're losing your mind, but it could be something to do medically. So rule out the eye vision issue if that is a potential issue. If you haven't had physical and you're due for one, go in and get it soon. Get it done. Just get an overall health check. Make sure you're fine, that everything's okay. And then, depending on what those two things tell you, if they come back clean, both reports come back clean, then I would say that you are in for a ride, would be what I'm going to say. Because at that point, if you're seeing that much activity and this is something new, but there's a reason for it. There's always a reason for it. So I don't think you just start. I don't think that your abilities, I would say this person already has abilities. So I don't think that the abilities have anything to do with seeing more and more and more. I think it's something is ramping up. What that is, I don't know. But I wouldn't be scared of it. I just think that maybe something is ramping up. So maybe there's going to be a big moment in your life in the near future. I don't know. That's where I'm leaving it. Anything else? All right.
Nope.
So, number 2, my boyfriend saw me dead and decomposed in front of him. It starts off, it says, look, this wasn't the plan. I should be working, but me and my boyfriend had a really strange experience just then, and both of us are shook up. Me particularly, because my boyfriend doesn't get scared. He doesn't believe in ghosts. He's just a man's man type of guy. doesn't cry, be tough, be masculine, etc. My point is, this isn't his thing. It's random, absolutely random. He's asleep now after crying. Yep, this made my man cry. I never seen him cry. So he was fully awake and getting ready for bed. He had the lamp on, was in his dressing gown, must be like 15th century England, pulling the sheets back. I walked in, I said something, and as soon as he looked at me, he had this adverse, horrible reaction. He paused quickly, then started screaming. He went nuts. He covered his eyes, then he covered his face with his hands, all while confused and screaming, "What's wrong with your face? Stop it. It's not funny," over and over. I had no idea what he was talking about. He doesn't do drugs. He doesn't drink. He's mentally healthy, loves cricket. Anyway, by this time, he was collapsed in the corner of the room, screaming for me to turn the main light on, although the lamp was already on. I turned it on, and he finally calmed down, snapped out of it. He went and washed his face and was visibly upset when he told me that it looked like I was dead and had been for a while, that my skull was nearly visible, my nose was gone, and my eyes were gone. I told him to stop messing with me, but clearly I have no idea what just happened. I am not dead, obviously. Things are so strange around me. I'm sick of writing it off as just strange. This wasn't normal, totally out of character, and now suddenly he's fine again. I've never seen someone look at me with so much terror in their eyes. What happened? Good question. So while he was in his dressing gown, I just can't get over that. I just got done watching cricket. He's in his dressing gown, and she walks in, and he sees her as basically a decomposed corpse.
Face.
Yeah. Well, true. It didn't say anything about the rest of her body, just her face. I'm going to go with my only idea that I've got on this one, and that is that he had some type of premonition of how you're going to look soon. I know it sounds bad, but that he saw you after you were dead. I can't explain it. Don't know how it worked. I don't know if you kind of time slip jumped somehow, or if he was, I don't know. I don't know how you would see somebody that was decomposed like that. The only thing I could think of, honestly, the only thing that's coming to mind for me is that he saw her as she is going to be in the near future. And I know that's not like the most sweetest answer, but that's what I got.
I understand. I don't necessarily think it needs to be like near future. I mean, it could just be obviously in the future, but I have a real issue with people saying he's mentally healthy and then following that up with he loves cricket. I think those are opposite statements. Like one disproves the other.
Gotcha.
So, and yeah, in the dressing gown, that's hilarious.
First time I read that, I'm like, what?
A man's man in a dressing gown.
Getting in his dressing gown. That's what I said too. I'm like, yeah, he's real masculine. He's all a man's man. He's tough. Doesn't cry. So he's in his dressing gown, getting the sheets fluffed before bed. Sorry. I mean, I know people listening are probably like, don't be such a dick. I'm sorry. But
yeah, well,
it's funny. It's funny. It's
very funny. So, okay. I'm going to say something now, which is probably going to make our female listeners angry with me. And I assure you before, and this is why I'm saying this, disclaimer here. This is not everybody at all. I don't even think people or women really need to even dress up as much as they do. I understand that they do. I just don't think that that's necessary. So with that said, I'm thinking back to this story that a buddy of mine, and for whatever reason, it actually popped in my head either earlier today or yesterday, which is weird that this is coming up with this story. And a buddy of mine, back when he was, I don't know, 18, 19, something like that, he was like 40 when he told it to me, so this is a while ago, was at camp, and there was a woman there who was absolutely beautiful. I mean, like all the guys in camp wanted her. I mean, she was just gorgeous.
Like 80
One
summer
morning,
movie, beautiful.
Sure.
Like
I don't know.
80 summer camp movie, beautiful. Because you always said that one just killer, stunning looking Farrah Fawcett looking lady.
Yeah. Right. He never really like described her to me. He just said, you know, she was gorgeous. Absolutely. Yeah, she was absolutely beautiful. And then one morning he woke up earlier than everybody else, and went into the bathroom and found her without her makeup on, and said she was absolutely horrid. He didn't even recognize her at first. But he said she was. Oh, it is, and I don't mean to say that this is all women. I'm just saying that with this story, this is what popped into my head, and like he was aghast. Like he was like, "Whoa! Like what happened to you?"
Well, that must have made her day. Oh my God, what happened to you?
So
that's funny. Sorry,
but she actually was like, "Get out of here!" You know, you're not supposed to like see me like whatever she had said.
Right.
And she like slammed the door in his face, and she came out like 10, 15 minutes later, all made up, looking gorgeous again.
Right.
And pretty much told him that he's never to repeat the story of what he had seen to anybody else. So I'm saying is maybe he caught a glimpse of you without your makeup on and like freaked out.
Well, don't you think he might have
seen her before that?
Yeah, I mean, they're in a relationship. I would assume he'd see her before that.
I don't know. Probably. But, maybe it was a trick of the lights, a combination of everything, because he just had the lamp on.
Right.
Uh-oh.
What?
Did you get a comment to
the
story?
No. I'm just thinking it's got to be a hell of a light effect to see her as a decomposing corpse with no nose or eyes. It's a little, I don't know. I get what you're saying, but I don't know if I could get behind it.
Sometimes women are scary looking. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but no eyes and no nose.
I honestly don't know. I'm with you. I don't think it's a near future thing. I think he had a brief moment of, whatever was going on with him, whether he was hallucinating, whether maybe he was on some sort of medication that she's not aware of.
Yeah. Maybe. I mean, I'm sure there's it could be a logical reason for it.
Right. And that's all I'm saying is I don't think it's so much a premonition as I think that something is just going on where he either mistook it, or whatever, depending on how fast he looked at her and then, freaked out, or maybe he was taking some medication that in the light and everything made him
caused him to see something odd.
Because typically you do take your medication right before you go to sleep. Usually, so if he had just taken it and was getting ready for bed, it might have caused him to hallucinate.
I can get behind that. I still think it's a premonition, but I mean, I can get behind your thing. Right. The other reason I think that it's a premonition that's sooner than later is because I'm assuming that it still looked like her age-wise. You know what I'm saying? So like when I was married, if I would have seen my ex looking all decomposed and stuff,
you would have laughed?
I would have been like, thank God. As she looked, right, I would know her because of how she looked, as opposed to if it had been her looking all decomposed and old, no nose or eyes, and she was 80 when she died, I would be able to recognize the difference between her being 30 and her being 80 because of her physical features and the other things that would look like her. That's what led me to that statement. I'm just clarifying that. That's what led me to the statement of, not that it's going to happen tomorrow. It's not what I'm saying, but that it's sooner than later is, I guess, the easiest way to put it. And I I don't like saying that because I don't want to see, something happen, but I think he saw something. My question here would be, I would have him draw it for me, or have a sketch artist draw, have him explain it and have somebody draw it. And then I would really sit him down away from her and say to him, have you seen stuff like this before? Is this the first time you've ever seen it? Or have you had experiences that have made you pause or freaked you out or whatever? And maybe without her knowledge, without her knowing it, maybe he's had some experiences that he just doesn't talk about. Right? Because a lot of times people don't want to talk about it because they don't want to be judged.
That's fair.
So maybe there is something going on with him. Maybe it's medical, maybe it's medication, or maybe it's just the fact that he has witnessed stuff like this prior and he just hasn't shared that with her. So, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's me.
Up. Yep.
I'm up.
You're up.
All right. Number 3. Unsettling, quote unquote, country store my family doesn't remember. Interesting. When I was 9 or 10, my parents and I were on a very long road trip. I was a sickly child, so we traveled a lot to see specialists around the country. I believe it was in Michigan, where we were driving through a very rural area. Lots of forests, not many people. It didn't seem strange to me at the time, but looking back now, I realize how strange of a place it was for such a large store. It was a long way from a town in either direction. It was a cramped clearing, barely big enough to fit the store and parking lot. There was what looked like something like an Amish store on the side of the road. But it wasn't exactly that. It looked almost industrialized, like how a smaller Target or Walmart store would look if it were trying to be country. I can't even put that into my imagination. I have no idea what that would look like. The Cracker Barrel, maybe?
I didn't want to say it because I didn't want to steer you somewhere, but when you read more, this whole thing to me sounds like it's a Cracker Barrel.
All right. I don't remember exactly why we were stopped there, but I know we didn't plan to beforehand. We walked inside and immediately my alarm bells started going off. I was young enough that I didn't really understand, but I remember telling my mom that I didn't like it in there. Sounds exactly like a Cracker Barrel. We walked around a bit and I stopped my mom and I at an aisle full of country style candy. That's when I noticed something specific that was wrong. Everyone else in the store looked incredibly vacant. They would stop to look at something on the wood shelves for a few seconds, then move on to one item at a time. Almost robotic-like, and everyone was alone. No one interacted with anyone else, and it was very quiet. That's when I told my mom I wanted to leave, and I was very adamant about it. She was reluctant, but we met up with my dad, paid for our things, and left. My memory of this place is pretty vivid, but I remember absolutely nothing about the cashier or anyone else who worked there. I remember trying to explain why I felt so strongly once we were on the road again, but my parents were a little frustrated and I was bad at explaining myself. A few months ago, I had a dream of a place like that, and the place was fresh in my mind again. When I saw my mom next, I brought it up and asked where it was, but she had no memory of the place. Even after I told her the whole story, she had no recollection. I asked my dad not too long after, and his reaction was the same. Even though we traveled a lot, we tend to remember the trips pretty well, so this was unusual. Has anyone else been somewhere like this? Any ideas why it was so eerie? Yeah, it sounds exactly like a Cracker Barrel.
It sounds just like a Cracker Barrel to me.
I mean, the country store, the country candy, everybody looking vacant and alone.
Right. Looking at things on the shelf and then taking a couple steps down, look at something else on the shelf. It sounds just like a Cracker Barrel. There's two ways I can go here. So one is obviously this was just a random story and you, for whatever reason, didn't like it. And it was so, I guess, not rememberable. I mean, and I don't know how much time has passed. I mean, you said you were a kid then and now you're not. So I'm assuming
10, 15 years have probably passed.
I would guess, yeah, probably.
Something like that. I mean, it's going to be hard for your parents to remember a store that they didn't think was at all remarkable. So I'm not surprised that they don't remember that. But the other part of it is, well, actually, no, there's three. So there's three ways I can go with this. The second one is you probably alone shifted to a place that probably isn't very good. I don't remember where. I don't know if it was a story I read or like a re-dramatization show or where I'd seen this at. But you kind of got a glimpse of, you could call it purgatory, maybe, where people are just kind of there and they're waiting. And I don't know, maybe that's what purgatory is now. Maybe it's a Cracker Barrel.
Could be worse. I mean, honestly,
it definitely could be worse.
Cracker Barrel food is pretty good.
Could be Denny's. So, I mean,
could be an IHOP.
I've actually never been to an IHOP.
Well, you ain't missing nothing.
I understand. Yeah, I haven't really been. I got a great joke about an IHOP, but that's about it. So anyway, the third part of that is you're sick. You're probably again on medication. You could have dreamed the whole thing, and woke up or whatever, not realizing that you had fallen asleep, and now you have this vivid memory, quote unquote, of the store that never really existed. Those are my three theories.
All right, hold on. I got to sneeze.
No, you don't.
Okay, never mind. It went away. All right, so I am going to go with 9, 10 years old, going to see specialists around the country. Definitely health issues. Definitely probably on different medications that most people would not be on. If you're traveling around to see specialists, you could be on some heavy doses of stuff. So I think that could be like maybe they had a fever, maybe the medication was affecting them, and they got a little bit of paranoia going on, and so they started freak. Because to me, it sounds like you're in a country store, restaurant. I mean, it not necessarily have to be a name brand place, but it certainly could have been a knockoff or something like that. Kind of odd that it would be, if it truly was in between like a huge stretch of woods, like a little tiny carved out area, and then another huge chunk of woods. That is kind of odd. But if you think about it, there's not a whole lot around Betty's Pies. So that's kind of like that, right? I mean, that place is kind of carved into, there's not a lot else around there, really. Not for a while, anyway. So I think probably what it was medicated, a little bit of paranoia, maybe a little bit of hallucination. I don't think it was paranormal. Can't go with paranormal on this one. Interesting story. That's why I selected it, because we haven't done one like on a building before like this. So that's why I picked it. But I'm not getting a paranormal feel to this at all. I'm getting more of a heavily medicated 9-year-old who's sick, who's on a long road trip, who stops at Cracker Barrel and buys some stuff. Mom and dad want to stop to buy some snacks for the road or whatever. And then you get freaked out for some reason and drag him out of the store screaming. That's what I got. All right.
That's fair.
A stranger looked at me, and I felt like I saw a ghost. Like 20 minutes ago, I was walking home from the store alone. It was 1 p.m., so it was really bright outside, by the way. On my way back, I randomly looked to my side toward the road, and I saw a car driving past me. He was staring at me as he was driving. He kept driving, but didn't take his eyes off of me until he turned his head as much as he could. And then I'm assuming he looked away because the car was too far to make out a face. I swear when I looked at him, it felt like my heart froze. Something about him made me feel so scared, and I don't think it was the fact that I couldn't see his eyes. I just saw empty eye sockets, but I'm just assuming the car was too dark to see because the windows look kind of tinted. Does anyone know what they think this was? There's no way I was that scared for no reason. There was something wrong with this guy. I just know it. Okay. So, doesn't say male or female. I'm going female here, though. You're walking home. I think women have a natural defense system built in. That they notice shit like a guy in a car staring at them and they think, holy crap, you know what I mean? Like something's going to happen. This is bad, you know? Whereas maybe the guy was trying to find a street address. Maybe he was looking, I would say maybe he was looking for a street address if he had like looked over at you and was like looking through you or looking for a store name or something like that. The fact that he had his head turned around all the way, I don't know. I could see how it would make you uncomfortable feeling if you're a young girl, teenage girl, younger, whatever, even a woman in her early 20s, maybe, you know, if you're walking by yourself, but it's 1:00 in the afternoon, but I'm just saying, if you're walking by yourself and some guy slows down, looks at you, and stares at you, and then doesn't take his eyes off you and actually turns his head like this to follow you, I could see how that would make you uncomfortable. I'm not going to say that the guy had empty eye sockets. So, because if he did, how was he driving a car? So I'm going to say maybe he had glasses on, you know? I don't see that there's anything here to be afraid of. I'm not getting a whole paranormal vibe on this one either. If there was more to it, like, hey, he stopped the car and got out and he had on like a solid black suit, like an old top hat or something, you know, an old hat or something like that, then I would think maybe some sort of Men in Black type of situation, you know, maybe. But just for a guy driving down the street with tinted windows who happens to look over and you can't see his eyes very well, and so you think his eye sockets are missing, or his eyes are missing and it's just eye sockets. He could have just had on like John Lennon dark shades that would make your eyes look dark and they'd be small, you know, right around your eye. So I'm not going paranormal on this one either. I think this is just a random occurrence. Guy driving down the street. Maybe this lady's really good looking. Or maybe this girl is really attractive for her age and the guy's a pervert.
Well, right up until the pervert comment, I was going to be, you know, that's me 90 times a day, you know, when I'm out in my truck. I mean,
snapping your head back and forth at all the women walking around in summer clothing. Yeah.
Yep. Because sometimes it's all I have to look at.
True.
You know, so, and it is part of my job to be observant. So I need to make sure that I know everything that's going on. And that's not in any way like, oh, that's my justification for being a pervert. No, like I literally need to know what is going around me at all times.
Right.
It just so happens that they're very attractive women.
Right. Walking around in bikini tops and sports bras and stuff like that because it's hot outside. Right.
Lots of yoga pants.
Pants. Right. Yeah.
Right. So, as you were reading this, 100% got the guys just needs to stop staring. Like,
right.
That's it. Like I fully got she's probably a very attractive woman, and he just has no filter to him. He has no line where he's just like, I'm going to follow her all the way until I can't see her anymore.
Or I crash into a water hydrant.
See, now, if, as you were saying, you know, I mean, if there was more to the story, like I saw his head go, you know, full 90 degrees, you know, where it was aimed backwards at me, staring out rear view mirror while his body was forward.
Right.
I mean,
that's a whole different story. Right.
That's a whole different story. If it would have been like I saw his head go 360 degrees,
that's a whole different story from that.
That's a whole different story.
Right.
But I really think that this is probably, as you said, a fight or flight, where this the look at the guy and the way he was staring.
Yeah.
I mean, it really seems to be quite obvious. Like it wasn't one of those, oh, what am I looking at? And then you like try to get out of the corner of your eye.
Right.
You know, it's you don't. But like if you just fully on stare in your head, like follows this person as they pass, that's a little creepy.
It's a little creepy. Yeah, I agree.
And I mean, I don't blame you at all for having that instinctual.
Do I need to run type of thing, or should I duck into the store, or you know what I mean? Right.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't think that there's anything paranormal here either. I think you just got stared at by a really creepy guy.
I do too.
It happens.
It happens.
Unfortunately, men are stupid and creepy.
Some guys are. Yeah, some guys don't have a filter.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say in a general sense, there are exceptions to the rule, but the rule is men are morons. So,
right. That statement right there makes up for the earlier statement of women putting on clown face to look good. I will say I can back that story up because regretfully I have met somebody at night, hooked up, and then the next day was like, who the hell are you? Where was the lady I came home with last night?
And the whole reason that I put the whole disclaimer on that is because I'm just one of those people who doesn't feel like women need to put on makeup.
No,
I like the natural beauty of things.
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, but that didn't fit my answer to that story.
Right.
Couldn't put that out there. Like that. So, all right. So here we go. Number 5. I think I saw death. This ought to be interesting. It was 4 years ago. Then you did see death.
Yeah.
I live in a rural area. I was outside at night taking my dog out to potty. Potty. Okay. People are using weird terminology today. The evening gown and potty and I love cricket. It's wrong. So we have a big sycamore tree in our front yard, and at the time we had a swing. I looked at the swing and noticed something on it. I froze in fear because what I saw was a dark figure, a figure so black it stood out in the darkness. It seemed to have a misty black aura around it. The darkness outside had a slight blue hue, because the sun had set an hour beforehand. I could see it swinging, moving back and forth. All I could do was stand and watch. I wondered if my eyes were playing a trick on me. It looked like it was the size of a teen boy. I grabbed my dog and ran inside and turned the lights on, flooding the yard with light, and I ran back outside. The swing seat was still moving, but I saw no one. As I mentioned, I live in a rural area. My driveway is about 100 feet long. My neighbors are all old and in their 70s. I was only gone for a minute. I still questioned what I saw, but went back inside. Later that night, as I was falling asleep, I heard a man's voice ask me clear as day, "What would you do if your dad died?" All I could say was, "What? I don't know." I don't know how long I was asleep, but I woke up to banging on my door. I wake up and hear my mother crying hard. I open the door and she says, "I think my father is dead." "I think your father is dead." Sorry. I ran to their room and he was. I went outside the next day at the same time and could tell the swing seat was empty despite it being dark outside. The image of the black figure is still engraved in my mind, and I remember the voice to this day. I think I encountered death. Do you think that was possible? So I'm torn here, and I'll explain why. I absolutely love the fact that while death is waiting to take somebody, he's just casually swinging. Like he's just out there, like just like just having some fun.
Maybe it's been a while since he was swinging.
I love that visual.
Yeah.
And that death is so nonchalant that he's like, I got a few minutes. Let's have some fun.
I got here early.
Yeah,
a
little early.
Dad's not going for another 3 hours. I got time to kill, so I'll sit on the swing. I don't know. We've read some good stories about death, so
yes. So I don't. I don't know exactly what to do about the voice. I think that's. I think that is definitely paranormal, but whether it's death itself trying to taunt you for some reason, no idea why it would choose to do that. Maybe it's a rookie death. Who knows?
It's like the death of being an ass. Maybe it's like the one Reaper who's just a total dick. You know what I mean? Like, so he's not supposed to be swinging. He's swinging when nobody's looking. He's having a smoke, whatever. Yeah. Just like the guy who's being a total jag-off about death. And so he walks in there and taunts the daughter as he knows as he's there to reap dad. He's going to get fired.
Otherwise, I mean, there's nothing saying that the voice you heard was death. It could, I don't know, it could be any sort of spirit. It could be, I don't want to say a guardian angel because
That'd be kind of a dick move for a guardian angel, wouldn't it? It would
definitely be. It's just a dick move in general.
I agree.
But that's interesting because I can't imagine, death, the Reaper.
Right.
Like literally just trying to taunt somebody that was living right before they took somebody else. Maybe there's other stories out there like that. I don't know. I don't know. For some reason, I want to say no. Like it wasn't death. It might be a spirit. Yes. I just don't think that it was death. Something about that just doesn't feel right to me. I think I'm just going to leave it at that. Something about that bothers me. I still love the fact that death is on a swing. I think somebody should make a painting or a drawing of that because it would be hilarious. Mm-hmm. But the second part of it, I just can't get behind it. That's where I'm going to leave it.
All right. So I definitely think that she saw something sitting in the swing because the way she describes it is the way we describe shit we see all the time, is that the figure is black, but it's so black that it stands out against the black of the darkness of the room we're in. Like we have both been in rooms that are pitch black that you can't see your hand in front of your face and see something walk in the damn room. And people don't, I know that it's really hard. What you haven't. Okay. I have. And a lot of other people have. So
right.
I know that it's hard for people to understand how that can happen. And if you ever experience it, you will understand kind of how that happens. It's so much of a different shade of black that it completely catches your eye in a completely blacked out room. So for her to describe it like that to me, and that it was swinging, and that when she turned the light on and ran back outside, that the swing was still moving back and forth as if somebody was still sitting in it, but she couldn't see anybody anymore with the light on. To me, that's paranormal. I think that that's legitimately a really, really good possibility of being paranormal. Now, do I think that was death? I don't know. I don't know that. The image that we all have is, the Reaper's coming. He's got his hood. his hooded gown, cloak, whatever you want to call it. He's got his sickle.
Yeah.
Right. He's coming for you. Personally, I don't think that's what death looks like. I think that that's like something that was drawn in a cartoon probably from the 1920s and it stuck, to be honest. I don't even know, and maybe not. Maybe before that. I mean, maybe back in some paintings back in the Dark Ages or something like that, when they described like death coming for you, maybe they drew something similar to what we imagine today, and it's just evolved. You know, I'd have to do some research on that to be sure, but that's possible too. I don't know. But I personally don't think it looks like that. I don't think that death is going to look like that. So that's the first half of this. I think she saw something. I think she legitimately saw something in the swing that was swinging. And the fact that it was still swinging when she turned the light on, the only thing that I would say there, and obviously if it said this, then we could be more conclusive on our thoughts, is that she didn't say if it was windy out that night. If it was dead calm out and the swing is still swinging, something's happening. That's not normal. You know, if it was windy out, okay, now we got to discount the swing because the swing can be moving due to the wind. But it doesn't say that, so I'm sticking with that it was moving because of an entity. So later that night, you're falling asleep. Here's a man's voice, clear as day. What would you do if your dad died? Obviously, you're falling asleep. You know, so your response is going to be like, I don't know. You know, and not long or relatively not long after that, mom's banging on the door and says, I think your father is dead. So obviously death came for her dad that night in the truest of senses, right? Whatever death is, whatever death form is, came for her dad that night because he died that night. I think the two might be related. I just don't know how. I don't have a good answer for how. I know we're joking around when we say stuff like, yeah, he's out there having a smoke. He had some time to kill. I don't think that that's how death works. But again, I don't know for sure that it doesn't. I don't know if maybe there's more than one Reaper. You know, I mean, obviously in Supernatural, the Reapers changed all the time because they kept killing them, you know, and then somebody else would become a Reaper, you know, or that Reaper. So to me, a Reaper wouldn't be possible to go collect every soul anyway. So you would have to have more than one Reaper anyway. I don't think that one entity could go around and collect every single soul that passed away. I don't think that's possible. People died simultaneously. I just don't see how that could happen. So logically, I think there's more than one. And I think the two things are related somehow. I just can't quite put my finger on it right now how that is. And I don't have an answer. I don't have a solid answer for the total dick move of saying, you know, what would you do if your dad were dead? I think that's just a total dick move, no matter what it was that she saw or heard or experienced. You know, and I don't know. I'm with you. I don't think death provokes the living. I think death is just there to do its job. So it was just there to collect dad. I don't see why it would go in there and start provoking a teenage girl or younger girl or whatever, however old she was. She didn't say how old she was. So I'm assuming she's living with her mom and dad, taking her dog out to potty. I'm going to say she's probably not 30, but she could be, obviously. You know,
in this day and age,
she could be 35. You know? Yeah, right. So I don't think that that's the case, but I think there is some correlation here. I just think whoever had this experience didn't write concisely enough. They left a couple of puzzle pieces out. And so it's hard for me to, and for you, obviously, to put the puzzle pieces together. But I think there is something to what happened here. I just don't know exactly what it was. Okay. Anything else on that?
Nope.
Okay. Number 6. Do you think that some patients in mental institutions might actually be possessed? Yes, I do. So anyway, sorry. Should wait until I read it. How could you even distinguish between mental illness and demonic possession? I guess to a psychiatrist, they are one and the same. This is hypothetical, of course, assuming you actually believe in demonic possession to begin with. Shortest question we've ever had. So do you think that some patients in mental institutions might actually be possessed? Yes, I do. 99.96%. I think that people that are being oppressed, people that are being possessed, people that are being afflicted by demonic entities that start to lose their perception of reality due to the negativity that's constantly bombarding them, start showing signs that are similar to things that are clinically clinical diagnosis of true mental illness, brain damage, whatever. And immediately I jumped to the thought of, and I don't remember if he said this in our interview or if it was post-interview when we were talking to him, but when Chip was talking about when he was young and he was on like his postgraduate internship thing, and he went to one of the mental hospitals, and that was part of his like study or some sort of paper he was doing or something like that. And he went and sat in and he watched people being like in certain rooms and people being interviewed, and he watched that one lady or that one girl and her head turned completely all the way around. And he said, craziest shit he ever saw, and wasn't even sure that he legitimately saw it, but he was there and that he knows what he was looking at, and that he, even though he doesn't want to believe it, that he totally believes it, and that her head spun 360 degrees. Now, that's impossible, obviously, unless you're breaking your neck and dying. I mean, it is possible to spin your head 360 degrees. After you get to a certain point and your neck snaps, you can obviously continue to turn it because there's no resistance anymore. Nice thought. But with that in mind, I totally do think that there is demonic influence in psychiatric clinics. I also think, and if you think about this, if you think that demonic entities, negative entities of all shapes and sizes, I don't care what you want to label them, could be jinn, could be demons, could be whatever your personal beliefs are, whatever your cultural beliefs are. I think that entities like that in general would be drawn to a location like a psychiatric hospital where people are disturbed, because those people are easy prey, because they have lost the cognitive ability to make a differentiation between right and wrong. And if something starts to happen to them, something new, not something that put them in there, something new starts to happen to them, and they're in there for a legitimate mental health reason, their doctor is probably going to lean to the sides of, this is a complication from your schizophrenia, let's say, if that's what you're in for, right? So we need to change your dose of medication, or we need to do this or do that. They're not going to think, well, maybe a demonic entity showed up in your room because of all of the chaotic energy that's in here and all of the darkness that surrounds this entire place and the people in it. And, they're just not going that direction. They just don't see them going that direction. So, yes, can't say it with more conviction. I totally think that some of the people that are in mental health institutions worldwide are there due to demonic oppression and or possession and or torment.
I agree. I definitely think that possession in some form does constitute, a certain percentage of people in institutions. Mm-hmm. Whether they get it when they're there or whether that's the whole reason that they come in, mm-hmm. Because they start acting crazy. I think, though, that specifically would be somewhat easy to pick out, because if they start getting worse, if they're given medications and that doesn't help, because it's possession, it wouldn't.
Right.
Because I know that there are a lot of stories out there, claims out there of people who are possessed, who their entire facial features change.
Right.
They almost look like they're, on meth. So if they get to this institution and that starts to happen, even though they're, on this medication, even though they're being washed, they're not on drugs, they're not, they don't have access to drugs, like meth or whatever. They actually have medication.
Right.
But, possession, or, whether it's a demon, is not just going to sit around and be like, okay, well, I'm here, I guess I'll just sit back and let it ride. They're going to continually do stuff. The other thing that I want to put in that really has nothing to do with this story, but this topic in general, is how many people with mediumship abilities who don't know it are diagnosed with schizophrenia and put in these institutions, even though they are really hearing actual spirits,
right? And
not just like voices in their heads who are doing certain things, or saying certain things or whatnot. I think that's a good amount of people too. The people who are put into mental institutions, whether temporarily or whether permanently, who do not belong there.
Right.
Psychiatry and science is fickle when it comes to that sort of thing. You're going to have like a parapsychologist look at these as opposed to a clinical psychologist, because the clinical psychologist is never going to go with mediumship. They're going to give you schizophrenia medication, and that is your diagnosis.
Right.
You're absolutely crazy. There's no way the demonic, possession is happening. It's all in your mind, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I do definitely think that it has happened. I think it does happen. How often though, I don't know. I honestly can't say. I think.
Okay, you're fine.
Honestly, I think demonic entities, for the most part, are smart enough not to go that far until they're in the clear. Because they always seem to have a plan, to separate their victim from everybody else in their life. So there's nobody left to turn them in.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that it's a long game. I just don't think that most demonic entities who want to possess people will go far enough to have people have them committed, to do so. And if they did, they'd probably leave and go someplace else.
I don't think so. I think that's a smorgasbord. I think a psychiatric hospital is like the best buffet, like a Las Vegas seafood buffet. I mean, for like $12. I mean, that's what I think. I'd be, honestly, if I putting myself in a demonic shoes, if my job was to create torment and to separate men and mankind from their souls, and to harvest souls for my boss, man, I can't think of a much better place to go to where I won't have as much butting heads and stiff competition than to go to a mental facility. Just saying, that's what I would think anyway. That's where I would go. And that and an old folks home. That would be my two. If I were a predatory demonic entity, that would be my two locations I would go to. You go to some place where people have dementia and they're losing their mind already, that's easy prey. You go to a place where people are effed up due to whatever reason because their brains aren't functioning properly, again, easy prey. Okay, so my question is, it popped into my head here. I wonder, behind the scenes, how many major psychiatric facilities, like big ones, like New York, some of the big ones in the UK, I wonder how many of them bring in religious leaders when there's a case that they're not sure about. Like, I wonder if that happens without us knowing about it. Like, do they bring a priest in when they see something abnormal like that? Like, if you walk into a room and somebody looks at you and gives you a look of like they want to kill you, and then their eyes turn solid black, there's no physical human, that's not a mental illness, right? That's not a trait of a mental illness. Your eyes turning black is not a trait of mental illness. Physically, I also think it's impossible. So something causes that to happen. Is that a situation where, without publicizing it, they would bring in the church and start the process? Does this patient have an aversion to religious objects or to religious text being spoken out loud? If you come in and you read from the Bible, if you put a cross on them, if you sprinkle them with holy water, do they start losing their mind? Now, that could happen anyway, right? I mean, people can have an aversion to religious objects. That could be your mental illness, is that you have an aversion to religious objects and not be possessed, not even, not be anything to do with anything dark. So that'd be tough to differentiate it. I think my gut tells me that there's shit like that happens behind the scenes that we're not aware of. They just don't make it public.
The other thing to keep in mind with this are the people who their mental illness has convinced them that they are possessed.
Right. So you've got that too.
So the ones that somebody sprays holy water on them, it really has nothing to do with them, but they're going to be like, I'm burning, and they're not.
Right.
But to their mind, they are, because they have been fully convinced that they are possessed.
And so, as a side note here, just because I absolutely love the show, there's a show called Evil, and it is phenomenal. It really is a phenomenal show. Really well written, really well acted. So if our fans are like looking for a show that they have not seen yet, or if they saw an episode or two and then for some reason they forgot about it because they just so much stuff was on those shows to get bombarded with. Season 2 is very, very good. Season 1 was really good too, but season 2 is very good. And that reminds me of when you said getting sprayed with water, and when Leland got sprayed, thinking it was holy water, and he was like, it's burning, and it really was burning him, and he freaked out and screamed and ran out of the church's kitchen, and it really was God, what the hell did she use? Ammonia, I think.
Yeah, it was ammonia.
Ammonia, yeah, and it was just like cleaning for cleaning, ammonia. They put a little water to clean the floors or whatever. She sprayed him with it, like undiluted, and it started burning him, legitimately burning him. And he runs out of there screaming. I thought that was funny, so it just popped in my head. But it's a phenomenal show. So, okay, you want to get the next one? Yeah. Or do you want to move on to? It's 8:08. So do you want to do a couple more, or do you want to?
I want to finish. Okay. I want to finish these.
Okay.
All right. 10-year-old nephew claims he can see circular and square ghosts. My 10-year-old nephew told my mom and I that he can sometimes see ghosts. He describes them as circles or squares that float around the room. Sometimes they come together to form a whole person with arms and legs. He mentions swirls as well. He says he doesn't see them as much now, which makes sense as they recently moved out of state from a city that's known to be pretty haunted, Peoria, Illinois. Peoria, Illinois, so haunted.
It is.
Apparently. He said sometimes they whisper, but it's not clear, and that they don't necessarily seem bad, but not good either. They're just there. I'm curious to know if anyone has experienced anything similar and what it could possibly be. I'm no paranormal expert. Nobody is. But I'd guess ghost orbs or some manifestation of a spirit. This isn't new either. Even when he was 5 or 6 years old, my nephew mentioned seeing eyes and people or entities at night. Is he really seeing stuff or just attention seeking? So there's two different answers here. So obviously circular spirits and, orbs, or light up dust, who knows? depends on. I guess it also depends on where he's seeing them. Does he know what fireflies? We had an investigation this weekend where they were all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, well, are we seeing fireflies? Are we seeing orbs? What do we see? And
but here, this is inside though. This is
right.
outside.
So I'm just saying, where exactly is he seeing it? If they are inside, well, then that would throw that off. Right. But anybody can see these things. Anybody can see orbs, whether they do or not. I guess that's the question. But I really wouldn't get all of that. I don't want to say not upset, but like excited about it. Orbs are just circular balls of energy. They don't necessarily represent a spirit at all. They can, but they not always. And you can see just regular orbs and these balls of energy inside a house. They don't necessarily mean that it's a spirit trying to connect with you. Now, obviously, being put together and then forming like a transformer,
right?
That's pretty cool. Although we have had a story where something like that seemed to occur, where like these things were coming together to form a person.
Right.
The attention seeking part of that. My question to that is, do they read paranormal books? Do they watch the paranormal shows? If they do, they might actually be attention seeking because they see what happens and the reactions that these families, that these recreation shows, that these books all give to the certain person who has these claims. So if their world is filled with ghost hunters and ghost adventures and portals to hell and all these other shows, he may actually be attention seeking, especially if it's kind of gone down. The fact of like the whole, well, they're not all that bad, but they're not all that good either. That's a very vague statement. That just
sounds like something a 10-year-old would say to me, though.
I don't know. I think that they would have it one way or the other. But in general, I don't think there's anything to worry about with your nephew. If he has abilities, they will probably go away if he doesn't work on them, which they seem to already be doing. Especially with the whole audio thing that's all muffled. It just doesn't seem that he has like full control over his abilities, if he has any at all. And I'm assuming that as he grows older, they're just going to go away in general.
Okay. So I think that the kid has abilities. As far as attention seeking, the only thing I would say to that is, does this kid walk into a room and be like, look, there's some circles and there's a couple swirls and there's a couple squares. And then the things come together and he goes, oh, and it made a person, and then just turn around and leave without getting excited about it, without having to make you stop what you're doing to pay attention to him. Does he just come in and casually talk about it because he sees them so frequently? If he does, then he's not attention seeking. He's legitimately just telling you what he sees. Like, hey, I see this. I see this. Maybe to him, it's completely normal to see stuff. Maybe he's seeing shit all the time. And so if he is, then for him, it'd be the same thing as me looking outside and seeing a bird fly by or a rabbit run by. And I'd be like, hey, a bird just flew by. And it would just be a casual thing to say, or there's a rabbit outside eating grass right now. It's not like I'm making everybody stop and run to the window to look at the bird that I saw fly by. So therefore, in that respect, he's not attention seeking. It doesn't say that he makes a big deal out of it. And I think if he was making a huge deal out of it, that probably would have been an important piece of information to put into this story. So with that said, I'm going to say that he's not seeking attention. I'm going to say that he does have abilities and that he is seeing stuff. I agree with Mike on one aspect of it, is that he's going to if he doesn't work on building these abilities, they are going to eventually probably dissipate as he grows older. Maybe not, maybe not, but I think they will. Because I think what's going to happen here is you're going to start getting people telling a kid like that's 10, okay, you've been telling us about this stuff for the last 5 years. Let's move on to something else, right? It's not real. And that's what you're going to hear, shit like that. And once somebody that he respects and the people that he respects and that he loves start telling him stuff like that, then regretfully, he's just going to get rid of it. And he's going to just squash the ability. Now, the bitch of doing that, if he really is gifted, is that's going to come exploding out about 25 years later, 20 years later, when he doesn't want it to, and he's going to be like, and he's going to start seeing all kinds of stuff when it's going to totally freak him out and ruin his life, because that's just how it happens, because it's going to build up and build up and build up, and then it's going to come piling out like a freight train firing out of a tunnel, and it's going to be uncontrollable for a while. It's probably going to totally mess up his life until he realizes what's happening and gets a grip on it. But I think the kid is seeing stuff. Like you said, I think it probably will dissipate as soon as the parents and people he loves start telling him that it's not real. Okay, so the last one, and I'm going to do my best to read this exactly as it's written. Sometimes my mind will start putting in the right words. I'm going to try not to do that. So this story is titled Portal in My Home. So, hey, what's guys? I was wondering, has anyone else experienced a portal being open in their home? For the past couple of months, I have experiencing things in my home. I am a paranormal investigator and have visited several haunted places, and I know the difference if something follows me home, and if they were already there now, does it bother me? No, by no means does it bother me, because so far nothing bad has come into my home. There's no punctuation in there whatsoever, so hopefully I read it like that. That I didn't bring from one of my hunts, which I recognized quickly and have gotten rid of fast. And oh yeah, I also do cleanses. So I know there is always a chance for something to follow me home, but I do my best to get rid of the dominant spirits before they even enter my property. But my question is, has anyone ever experienced a portal in their home, and how do you close it before something bad does come in? And yes, I know exactly where it is. So if anyone can give some answers to fixing that problem, I would greatly appreciate it very much. And the first response to this was, first, I think all of your punctuation left via the portal, and which I found absolutely hilarious. And second, you meant demonic, not Dominic, right? Because I know some very nice Dominics. So anyway, just to lighten the mood, I had sent that to Mike as like, you have to take a read on this one because it's funny as hell. This person knows absolutely nothing about what the F paranormal is all about. They don't do cleanses. They do cleans, but they don't do cleanses. Yeah, exactly. So maybe like they've been out to a cemetery or two, or maybe they went into an old abandoned house that they broke into, or an old location that says no trespassing, and they went trespassing, and they consider themselves to be a paranormal investigator now because they've been out once or twice. But this person's not doing cleanses. This person is not, there's no portals opening in their house because of the fact that they're like this great paranormal investigator. And I'm sorry, but even the best of us don't know why something shows up in our house. We assume it's because maybe if we're in a location that the thing follows us home and shows up. I mean, I have said that before. It's been like that before. I've told the story about when we had the thing at White Bear Lake, and I went in there, and we were supposed to do our 15-minute kind of meet and greet after work. And we were there for like 2.5 hours, and the lady took 3 breaths in 2 hours. And that's not lying. Mike was there.
That was my joke.
Yeah, I mean, she took 3 breaths in 2 hours. I mean, she didn't pause for shit. It's also the place when we first got there, I'm like, hey, your kids can come downstairs. And I'm sitting on the staircase going up to the second story. And they're like, yeah, nobody's home but us. And I'm like, okay, well, I clearly hear a boy and a girl upstairs running around playing, laughing, talking, giggling. turns out the place was active, and the place did have a lot of shit going on, and we got some great evidence out of it. But it's also, the reason I bring it up is because it's also the place when I wasn't really had my guard up, and that stupid little 2-foot shadow thing followed me home and was running around my house for a while. So that said, I'm assuming that's probably where it came from, but who knows? It could have been something else. So, like I said, even the best of us are not 100% sure where stuff follows us from. It could have just been something passing through, and it was just timing. Like, we went there, and this thing was going to be there whether I went out that night to that house or not. Who knows? But anyway.
Yeah. I just can't. I think you actually read this correctly and not the way that he had written it. He goes, I have experience things happening in my home. I am a paranormal investigator and have visited several haunted places. But yeah, I do my best to get rid of
happy
in my home.
Yeah.
I do cleanses.
Yeah, so
right.
I run across stuff like that. It's kind of fun to read, and then just to kind of share,
Right. So
this is on the back of somebody's business card, and they present themselves as a paranormal investigator, and you're the homeowner looking for help. Just tell them everything's fine, everything cleared itself up. Hand them their card back. Don't let them in your house. Don't let them come in the house. So
yeah, there was a meme.
The goat hunter.
The goat hunter. Yeah, the goat hunter. Where
I printed up 25,000 of these. So that was hilarious.
Yeah, he was like, I am a ghost hunter. And I mean, you could tell whoever wrote it to seem like they were, kind of mentally slow.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, they printed it up and it says goat hunter. So that's and I have 25,000 of these. And
yeah, they made a mistake and they printed 25,000 and I had to buy them all. And so I won't be getting any new cards for a long time.
But
yeah, don't let him in your house either.
I haven't. I have not seen that meme in a long time. But that's what popped up in this. So I mean, I honestly I question this hugely because let's just say, for the sake of argument, he just was tired and did not proofread it. So he's like, I do cleanses and I do my best to get rid of demonic spirits and. Before they even enter my property and blah, blah, blah. But he doesn't know how to close a portal. He knows enough where the portal is, but he doesn't know how to close it.
Right.
Not to mention, portals just don't spontaneously open.
No, they usually have to be opened. And you usually open it by doing some sort of ritual or conjuring.
Right. So the fact that and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is something that we just have not gotten to that point of research yet, where if a spirit follows you home, like let's say we go to Edinburgh, and the Joker follows me home.
Right.
Is that spirit able to open a portal? Are spirits able to open portals?
That's a good question, but I'm going to say no.
Right. And that's what I've never really seen anybody really tackle that question.
No. Are
spirits able to open their own portals, or do they have to be open on our plane by us?
That's what I think.
And if that's the case, then this guy's, I'm going to assume it's a guy because guys are dumb. We made that.
Yeah, we already established that point earlier.
We made that distinction earlier.
Right. Yeah.
And this is another reason for it. So another example of it, not reason. But then it's not a portal in his home. No. He's like, oh, I got a portal. No, you don't. You have no idea what you're talking about, sir.
Right.
So I think it's funny.
To close a portal, I think you have to know how it was opened.
I I don't necessarily know about that because we did a cleansing with Cena not too long ago, like a month ago maybe. And while she was doing her cleansing, she was like, "There's portals all over this place." She's like, "I closed them." So I think it's not necessarily you have to know how they were opened, but I think you definitely have to have some sort of knowledge and ability in order to close them, just in general. I don't know. I don't know if you could go back and just be like, "All right, this portal's closed. Goodbye." Good night, goodbye. That,
Right.
and it closes. I don't know if that happens or not.
That's a great question when we do Cena 2 version 2 in 2022. It's a great question for her is how does she close portals? Does it matter how they were opened? And how does she know that they're there? Like, is it a feeling? Does she see it visually? So that'd be a good question for her.
Write that down. You have the list, so
I will. But I got to read it. I found it. Because it's even better than what we even said.
You found the meme?
Yeah. For hire, ghost hunter. Hi, I'm Michael, and I am the foremost ghost hunter in this part of town. I investigate any kind of paranormal activity and report back with my findings. It is like the X-Files, but without the drawback of having to explain my conclusions to a scientist. Here are some of my skills. Good at sensing the presence of ghosts. Have my own Ouija board. I'm almost certain I once contacted John Lennon via this method. Climbing, because climbing is important in paranormal investigating. Bravery, but also caution. In 2011, I solved the mystery of the haunted bus. If you don't know about it, look it up. If you want to avail of my services, please take one of my business cards below and get in touch. I know it says goat hunter, but that is a misprint. The lady in the shop misheard me when I said ghost hunter, and I can't afford to get all 250,000 cards reprinted. And it's actually on like a bulletin board, like you would see in a public location with a thing with his cards in it attached to it. It's absolutely hilarious. He's got his own Ouija board. He's good at climbing, and he can't afford to get all 250, not 25,000. Sorry, I messed that up. 250,000 business cards reprinted. Holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I have not seen that in a long time, but that's hilarious.
I haven't either. That's why I had to read it.
The foremost ghost hunter.
Jot down my Cena thing real quick. So
yes.
You move on with what you wanted to talk about. You said you had some things you wanted to talk about.
Well, right, but I wanted to make sure that we got to Brazil, so I was going to do that first.
Oh, all right. Well, give me.
But I can throw out my topic if you want.
Go ahead, throw it out. It'll take me a minute to write this down.
That's fine. We still got a half hour, so we're good. So here's my question for a discussion, and anybody who is listening wants to throw their comments in the chat. Anybody who wants to send us an email about this with your opinions, be my guest. odysseyfilesradio@gmail.com is the best way of getting a hold of us. So there's a lot of movies now, movies and TV shows, and they've actually been there for a long time, dealing with the multiverse. And, that's what obviously Marvel calls it. Here, right. Like, science would call it quantum universes.
Yep.
Do you think, not so much that they exist, because I'm pretty sure that they probably do, but do you think that when we dream, that we are not like using our imagination and creating things, but we are experiencing or watching or whatever another one of our own quantum realities?
It's a good question. I think at times we do. I don't think it's every single time I dream that I'm in another reality. But do I think that at times that they overlap? Yeah, I do. Because I've had these, especially lately, I've had these really odd. Turn that down. Notice it was getting dark in here. I've had these really odd dreams, full Technicolor dreams. I dream in full Technicolor anyway, like I've always said. When I have, like, when I'm really dreaming, they're like going to the ultra screen in Woodbury with the Dolby Atmos surround sound and Laserdisc DLP.
Laserdisc.
Well, they're DLP. They're on disc. So, but yeah, I know Laserdisc is a little old, out of date. But I have had these dreams where I've had, like, I've been there. I'm very familiar with it. The people that I'm familiar with are there, but it's not anything that I ever did. So clarify that up a little bit because it's kind of a confusing statement. So let's say that I'm with my high school friends, right? And what did happen in my real life is after homecoming football game, we went and did 2 or 3 very specific things. Okay. We went out to Flat Rock. We went swimming. Somebody floated a keg out there and we hung out for the night and drank out on Flat Rock out in Lake Michigan and had a great time. And there was a bunch of people there. In my dreams, I'm at that location again, but let's just say instead of going out to Flat Rock, we had a fire on the beach, which we never did in real life. But we did, but in my dreams, we're doing it and it's happening. So do I think, like what you said, is it possible that we're seeing it? I think so. I think in another one of my realities, we went out to the beach, but instead of swimming out to Flat Rock and taking a keg out there, a bunch of us got together and built a bonfire on the beach and sat around and had a great time. And didn't drink at all. Instead of people getting hammered and killing themselves out on Flat Rock like they did. Well, they didn't kill themselves literally, but jumping into hitting their heads on the rock. Just chaos ensued. It was a big rescue effort by the end of the night. But yeah, so do I think like that stuff happens? Yeah, I think so. And that's just one like quick example. I would say in the past 3 months, I've probably had a dozen dreams that were things that I experienced in my life, but they were totally not what happened legitimately. A few of them were with my dad. Some of them were with the family, a bunch of them with friends. Some of them were with my kids and my ex and things that we did. So I don't know how else to explain that. I mean, why would I go back and dream about something and then dream about it differently than how it actually occurred, when what actually occurred would be a pleasant dream in and of itself? I could see if it was like something bad happened and, I was traumatized by it, then would my mind possibly go in and change it? Sure, it probably would, because it doesn't want to keep going back to the things that are hurting, the things that are bad, that are negative, that are weighing me down or making me feel bad. So my brain's going to go in and auto-correct for that. But these weren't bad situations. These were pleasant experiences. So why would my brain go in and change them? I don't think it would. So I think it's a different me in a different universe. And maybe who knows what I look like, because I don't see myself when in my dreams. It's just me seeing what's happening. Right. So maybe, who knows? Maybe in some of these dreams I'm 6'8", 180 pounds, and maybe some of these dreams I'm 5'8" and 125 pounds, and maybe, who knows?
Right.
I mean, that's why when I'm seeing things, they seem like, some of them have seemed like perception is skewed a little bit. And so that makes me wonder, in a different universe, am I still 6'5", or am I 6 foot, or am I 5'10"? Does that differ? Am I still David, but does my physical characteristics change?
I think the only way that would happen is if...
The hell did that just come up for?
I have no idea what you're talking about. So
never mind. Yeah, that was weird.
I think the way that would happen is if you had to go back to your parents and their multiverses. Is your dad still your dad? Is your mom still your mom? you know, where did the genome change to where your then DNA would be different from what it is now?
Right.
And I definitely think that could exist too. I'm sure that there's a universe out there where I'm in shape. I've never encountered one. But there might be something out there where I made the decision to go to the gym right when I was 15 or whatever, joined the football team or something like that,
right?
And lived life there. I have not experienced any of those universes yet. I guess I don't particularly care if I do, because it'd probably just depress me. But it's there's so many things that can change. You were talking about how you actually went to certain places. I mean, there's a universe out there where you didn't go to Flat Rock at all.
Right.
Maybe you got sick and went home.
Yeah. And maybe I didn't even go to the football game for homecoming.
Exactly.
Maybe I missed it for some reason. Yeah.
You had to study a test, or your parents, maybe something bad happened.
Right.
I mean, who's to say that nightmares aren't just other, quantum universes where bad shit happened?
Well, if you want to go there, I'll even up the stakes on that one, because what's to say that in some of those quantum universes, it's just bad shit, right? Like everything is just effed up majorly. There is no good. It's all evil. Oh, like I went on a journey with Peter. I told you that, right? Where the unicorn came over and it gave me a kiss, right? And then I looked and I was on the wrong side of the river, and there was like Pegasuses and unicorns and this beautiful like glass castle and everything on the other side of the river. And the side of the river that I was on was like, all lava rock and just really jagged shit terrain. And then I got in that mining car, and that mining car just went down. And as it went through that whole thing, and I thought, well, maybe it'll go under and take me back to the other side. Well, it didn't. It was basically taking me in what I envisioned as hell or purgatory. Because as I started getting lower and lower and lower, at the end of that tunnel, after I'd been on that thing for a long time, at the end of that tunnel, it was a solid red glow, like I was going right into a blast furnace. And that's when I jumped out of the car. So who's to say that, like, if you accidentally end up in a bad slice of pie, that it's just not all shit? Like, there's nothing good there.
Yeah. I mean,
I think that exists. I think for all the good that exists, if we believe, and I believe this, that everything in the universe is a yin and a yang thing, right? There's short people, there's tall people, there's fat people, there's thin people, there's pluses and minuses, there's light and dark, right? Everything has, for argument's sake, and if somebody wants to get technical, I'm sure maybe you can find something that doesn't have an opposite. But for argument's sake, everything in the universe that we know of has an opposite, like a light and a dark, right? It complements each other. And so when two pieces fit together, they make the circle, like in old Chinese. Is it Chinese or Japanese? Sorry for our Asian listeners. But one of the two, right? So the yin and the yang. I think it's Chinese. Who's to say then that if there's a billion slices of multi-universes, let's not go put that big a number, a million slices, that there's not 500,000 really great positive sunshine type of slices of pie, and there's not 500,000 really shithole slices of pie, like moldy pie, like pie you want to run away from, because pie is good. So it'd have to be really bad pie to not want to be there. Oh, come on. You like pie.
Be like shepherd's pie.
Key lime pie. Strawberry rhubarb pie.
Those are good pies.
Those are good pies. Right. A bad pie would be like a haggis pie.
Yes. Yes, it would.
Roadkill pie. That would be another nasty one. So, but who's not, so to answer your question, as far as nightmares, what happens, maybe we just accidentally slip into those sometimes. I think that could happen.
Just really quick, because I have a lot of time on my hands and have for quite a long time now, I actually came up with a great restaurant idea called the Roadkill Cafe.
Nice.
Where where a slogan would be, "You kill it, we grill it."
Yeah, it's already out there.
It's already out there? Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I thought of it first.
I believe you 100%. It would be a great name for a place. I don't know how well it'd go over in Minnesota, but down south, it'd probably be a killer.
Literally.
Yeah.
Not
Literally.
Us.
Yeah.
Not us, but the animals.
Yeah, right.
So,
I mean, yeah, picking stuff up alongside the road and making some hot dish out of it.
Right. So this is something, like I said, for any listeners, whether they're watching live, whether they're listening on their favorite podcasting platform, if anybody would like to share their opinion of, their, not only of the quantum universes in general, but do we travel between the two? Not necessarily with the ability of changing anything, but observe it. Do you enter yourself in another quantum universe as a passenger, and you're able to see and hear and feel what that version of you is? It is experiencing for however long you're asleep. I like the fact that a lot of these different movies and stuff are making, like, there's a universe where you're a cartoon, and or you're completely made of paint.
Well, you're thinking of the most recent movie then. Yeah.
Well, yeah. There's
Doctor Strange, when he pulls her or she pulls him or whatever, and they keep flying through all those slices, and like in one they're paint and in one they're cartoons. And there's another movie out there that I just recently watched that is messed up, good but messed up, called Everything Everywhere All at Once, and in that's also a quantum universe type movie, and in one of them they're like drawings. Somebody drew them with like colored pencils and stuff like that. Right.
So, it's interesting, and I don't know if we'll ever get an actual answer on that, because I think it would be very, very dangerous to, and I'm sure somebody will do it at some point in time. They'll try to create a portal, to go to different quantum universes, and that will be bad. But
well, if you think about what Dr. Travis Taylor just said a couple of weeks ago on Skinwalker Ranch, when they were talking about the composition of that metal that they dug out when they were side drilling into the mesa, and when they took that stuff to the meteorologist at the university, the Indian professor, he basically said it's like what you would see as on tiling for a reentry shield. Yeah, mm-hmm. Right. Now that in itself is extremely strange, because why is there metal in the mesa of such sophistication with two of the rarest elements on the planet Earth? What is it doing there? But my point of bringing that up is oh, Jesus, there's a major brain fart. What were you just talking about?
Quantum universes, the portal to other quantum universes.
Yeah. Yes. So when Travis was sitting in the office, and he was talking about how you could stack a conductor and a semiconductor and stack these pieces on top of each other, and how NASA's black ops side of NASA was legitimately already doing this and experimenting to see if it had the ability to bend space and time as we know it, so that out in outer space they could take a ship from point A and move it to point B almost instantaneously. Now, if that's the case, I could guarantee you that some other aspect of the federal government or some private company is using that same technology to see if they can open up wormholes or portals, as we call them, or whatever you want to call them. Black holes, wormholes, portals. I know a couple of those are space terms, obviously, but that doesn't mean we couldn't create a mini one somewhere smaller than the ones that happen in outer space. But let's just use the term portal for simplification. What if you can bend space and time? That's what a portal is. So what if somebody is out there, and I'm sure somebody's already doing this, that they're building something that's going to do exactly what you're talking about. That they're going to allow travel to another slice of pie. Now, how are you going to get back, right? I think that's a one-way trip, because unless you have the technology when you stop, when you get to your end location, unless you have the technology to come back on that side, you're kind of screwed. You know, I don't think they're going to like tie a rope around your waist and then like pull you back through the hole.
It would have to be something that you could take with you. It would have to be a mobile, portable,
some kind of pack or something. Right.
Yeah.
Set this thing backpack down on the ground, push a button, and it opens up a portal, allows you to come back, or go to the next portal, depending on what your mission is. You know, to the next slice of pie type of thing. Because if they do manage to do that, if you think about it, they're not going to be happy with going to one slice of pie. They're going to go to every single flavor of pie ever created, and even pies that are never created. Right? And who knows? Maybe in one they're going to be paint, or maybe one will be two-dimensional. I mean, could you imagine that? Like you're like a piece of paper, like you said, a drawing, but you were just a piece of paper, like a cutout, just a two-dimensional being walking around.
I would like to go to the universe where I'm king of the world.
I'm not going to that one.
I would.
I know you would, and totally. I'll even help you pay for the ticket if I can.
I appreciate that. Or I'm like a really successful gigolo. I think that'd be pretty sweet.
There you go.
Just kidding. Anyway, so that was my topic, and now
right.
you have been teasing me with Brazil for
weeks,
at least a long time. So I would like to know, as our listeners would, what is going on?
What is going on in Brazil? Okay, well, good, because I'm going to tell you.
Besides a lot of COVID cases.
Yeah. Well, other than that, we're talking about UFO phenomena. So this just happened recently, which is why I've been talking about it, because I wanted to do it in a timely fashion instead of saying, oh, well, last year, this was June 24th of this year. It was the 75th anniversary of World Ufology Day. And it happened and what happened was they did the Senate hearings on UFOs in Brazil. The thing that's cool about it, and not that I could afford to go anyway, but they were going to have 170 free seats for the public, which is that would have been kind of cool if like an event happened like that, you could go to it. Such an event of this size is unprecedented in the world, and it's kind of the first of its kind, and will register a historic milestone in Brazil. On June 24th, the senators will hold a public hearing on unidentified flying objects in Brazil. It's a special session that was requested. The event is going to take place on the 75th anniversary, as already said, of World Day of UFOlogy or ufology, and is going to bring experts from around the world to one location to discuss the topic. So the interesting thing is, in the request for this event, Guiaro, who's the guy who was kind of behind putting it together, cited a report released last year by the Pentagon on the subject. The paperwork served for a hearing in the U.S. House of Representatives on May 17, 2021, in which U.S. defense officials discussed the existence of UFOs. So this has kind of been brewing for a little bit. Now, before I jump into kind of what they're going to talk about here, and there's a very specific reason why it was held in Brazil. I want to read something here that I saw. Okay. So let's see. After NASA placed the Hubble Space Telescope into orbit in the 1990s, humanity had to totally reassess its perspective on the universe, Senator Eduardo Guiaro solemnly declared. So same guy here talking. Mr. Guiaro was the author of the motion for the special hearing to take place, and he was wearing a pin with the Brazilian and American flags. Okay. In its first 10 years of operation, the Hubble telescope photographed, in first 10 years of its operation, I'm going to reread it. In its first 10 years of operation, the Hubble telescope photographed 30,000 new galaxies, previously unknown, some of which contained over 1 trillion stars. So 30,000 new unknown galaxies, some containing up to 1 trillion stars. We're going to pull that out of our pockets every time somebody says that there's not intelligent life somewhere else in the universe. I'm going to be in 10 years. In a 10-year span, the Hubble Space Telescope discovered 30,000 previously unidentified galaxies, with some having up to 1 trillion stars in them. And if the person still looks at me and they don't believe that there's life outside of our life, then I'm just going to walk away, because I can't be around that close to somebody that is that narrow-minded. So the reason they're doing it in Brazil was that 5 pilots were in the air. 5 Brazilian jet pilots were in the air. Let me find what night it was. It was a while back. Let's see if I can find it. The evening of May 19th, 1986. You got 5 pilots in the air. This is all caught on camera. It was never been released. 5 fighter jets chased mysterious bright objects, some of them 300 feet wide, and traveling at speeds up to 11,500 miles per hour in what Brazil calls its epic night of UFOs. 5 bewildered pilots testifying to seeing 21 objects appear and disappear, while hundreds of troops on the ground also witnessed them. That was admitted recently by the Air Force chiefs, to which they said there is no explanation as to what any of the troops or the pilots witnessed. I think that, especially since now that our government has released the now famous Tic Tac video, that you're going to see more and more stuff coming out. I know there were some European countries that were talking about they were going to start releasing some stuff that was taken out, but I think Brazil's taken the lead on this, because over several hours, hundreds of witnesses, including the elite of the country's military, saw strange objects that seemed to move at terrifying speeds. The pilots that were picking them up on their radars and then losing them felt like they were playing games of cat and mouse with these things. These things are way faster than the fighter jets, way more technologically advanced. They were spotted as lights in the sky from a control tower of an airport near the city of Sao Paulo. The air traffic controller first noticed, it says, it doesn't go up or down. It doesn't go left or right. It's just standing there in air. And then at that point, it shot straight skyward and disappeared in a matter of a millisecond. At one point, he said he dimmed the lights on the airport's runway, making the objects come towards the control tower. And then when he turned up the brightness, they moved away. Whether they were trying to interact with me, I don't know. What I do know is that they behaved intelligently, he told the BBC. At around 8 p.m., more than 2,000 cadets and officers from an Air Force training school in the same area reported spotting the lights and flying objects. Then an hour later, a plane piloted by the president of aircraft maker Embraer reported several objects in the sky as he landed at that same airport. The lights in the sky were also seen from 2 passenger planes, including one traveling to the interior of Brazil. That's when the jet fighters went up and they started playing games with them. His high-performance warplane hit 1,000 miles per hour, but as he closed in on the UFO, it accelerated to a speed he calculated at 15 times the speed of sound, or 11,500 miles an hour. The pilot said, if there's a plane that can develop that type of speed, I don't know of it. So that's why I wanted to bring it up, because it happened so recently. And that it's kind of goes with what's going on with UFO reports and UFO stories. And I think, and I haven't seen anything new released from that other than like technical notes, but I'm hoping that they release some videos, like some of the videos of this particular night, of all this stuff that they caught back in 1986 that they've never discussed before, which is kind of a big deal. Because you got over 2,000 people on the ground saw it, 2 commercial aircraft saw it, another aircraft saw it, all 5 fighter jets saw it, and an airport saw it. And it seemed, like he said, it seemed to intelligently respond to them when he dimmed the lights, like they came in closer. So whatever that was a massive bombardment of intelligent spacecraft. Now, what it was, I don't know. But the only way we're going to figure it out is if they start releasing stuff so that we can go in there and actually look at it and start coming up with different ideas.
Yeah. So that was your phone.
That was my phone. No, I got it on vibrate. I think it's on vibrate.
So, yeah, it is. So, and this just happened. They've had this meeting already. You said the
24th of this year. So a little about 3 weeks ago.
And there's been no report as to what they actually.
I didn't see it. I didn't see if any new videos got released. I mean, I just pulled it up today. And it's basically the same stuff that I saw 3 weeks ago. Like I haven't and I just retyped it in today. So if there is, it isn't online. It hasn't been released yet. At least not released to the public where we could just go look at it.
I'm not really referring to videos and stuff, but I mean, there has to be some sort of reporting on just the meeting itself and what they discussed and conclusions they came to.
Well, you would think so.
But apparently not.
Apparently not. The stuff that I'm looking at right now is the same stuff that was on that I read. I mean, there's more stuff in here that I didn't talk about, but there's the gist of it is I went over. Like Luis Alejandro, the guy who we know, he was involved in it. And he said he had the privilege to address the Brazilian Congress, and I applaud their sense of courage and tenacity involving the topic of UAPs. Perhaps the United Nations and other international governing bodies will see what Brazil is doing and follow their lead, he said. I am both encouraged and humbled by Brazil and her desire to elevate this topic to the level it deserves, a topic not of stigma and taboo, but a topic of scientific and academic pursuit. It was a unique experience in my career. I never saw anything like it. He says, I never saw anything like it again. He said, it doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I mean, so he was there. Like all these experts from around the world were there. American UFO researchers, as people who don't know who Luis Alessandro was, he headed up the Pentagon's Secret Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. If you're into UFOs, it's ATIP, and if you're into UFOs, you have heard of ATIP before. But he was the guy who headed it up when it was all black ops. They weren't talking about it. It didn't exist. Every time that they were saying it didn't exist, it existed.
Well, yeah, wasn't there some, I don't know if it was just between you and me or what, but thought that maybe he was Daniel David Skyfall.
Right. Because he had so much information. He was so well versed in I think that was like between you and I and Chad talking, but yes, we did come to that conclusion that he would be a prime candidate for being that person. Yeah. I mean, if anybody knows what the hell's happening with the ATIP program, it would be him because he was the head of it. So
yeah,
everything came through him. So,
or just the alien conspiracy in general. I mean, for those of you who don't know who Daniel David Skyfall is and why we're talking about him, you have to go back and listen to the alien conspiracy things. But he was pretty much a whistleblower to Chad Kalick about all kinds of black ops, like above top secret classified stuff that, like if you were found out to be the person involved, like you would never see the light of day again type of black ops type stuff.
Right.
And he was trying to get the word out because he felt that he or she felt that it was needed. It needed to be said, needed to be out there. So
there's that was the stuff like where the aliens were doing human experiments down in Mexico, like actually abducting Mexicans and Mexican citizens and doing like harmful type of experimentation.
Well, that was just some of what he came up
Right.
with.
That was a portion. That's what I'm saying. That was a portion of it. It was also the TikTok thing long before the TikTok was released.
Well, not only that, but it was the TikTok
Schematics.
video. Yeah, it was man-made.
Right.
It was made by us. It wasn't an alien craft at all. It was us.
Right. And the only way we'd have that technology is to reverse engineer that shit from Roswell or some other type of alien craft that we captured.
Or we're working in
tandem.
We're working in tandem with them. And they're teaching us on what we can and cannot do. So, I mean, I haven't heard anything about it in a long time. Since Phantom Rider was released, there's, as far as I know, there's been no word from Shad whatsoever about Daniel David Skyfall. So I wonder if that had the whole kibosh put on it.
I don't know, but you got to remember he was getting threatened. I mean, he was being watched. His place was being screwed with. Yeah, all of his shit was being hacked.
Yeah.
Like they sent that video. They hacked into his TV and sent a video of his front gate outside of his apartment live to his television set. I mean, if that's not a threat, people knocking on the door and then going to the door, nobody's there. They hacked when he was in the process of doing the rendering on the movie. They hacked into his thing and he was watching all the shit happen on his computer. They were taking over his computer.
They were trying to delete it.
Right, trying to delete the rendering for the movie.
Yeah.
So he had all kinds of shit happening. So I would not be surprised if he got a serious of enough death threat or to his spouse. Guys will run away from danger if they're somebody they love is threatened. Unless it's a movie, then they run forward.
Right.
But in real life, you run away. And you take care of the person you love, and you stop what the hell you're doing that's causing that potential your person that you care for to be harmed in any way, shape, or form. So, so maybe the threat came down that was serious enough, finally, that he saw it as serious enough and said, "I'm done. I'm done. I'm just not going to do it anymore." Because I haven't heard of him doing anything lately, to be honest with you. And not that I'm following him, really, but at least I would see in groups and chat rooms and stuff that I'm in, I would see stuff from him come in there on a somewhat regular basis. And I have not seen anything for a while. So I don't know.
Question for another time.
Yeah, question for another time. Exactly.
That does it here for this episode of the Odyssey Files. I want to thank everybody now and in the future for listening to the show. And again, if you want to throw in your opinion on quantum universes and whether in our dreams we kind of travel between them, odysseyfilesradio@gmail.com. If you have your own personal paranormal question or story that you would like to share with Dave and I, and for us to respond to that live on the air, odysseyfilesradio@gmail.com.
You can even send us a message on your favorite piece of pie, since we talked about pie so much tonight.
No.
So next week we go in the next couple of days, you get like 18 messages and they're all about what flavor of pie I like, and they have absolutely nothing to do with quantum folds of time.
I'm going to forward those all to you.
Okay. I'll address it. That's fine.
We'll be back with another new episode next week. Until then, stay healthy, stay safe. We want to see you back here. Everybody,